Oh my god, I love this game.
Yes, I know it's cliche to say these days, but I love me some Super Smash Bros. I've spent countless hours playing its various iterations over the years, and aside from Mario Kart, no other game can guarantee a good time with friends.
And hey, there's a new one coming out later this year, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The big hook of this one is that every single character that's ever been in a Smash game will be in this one, plus new characters. You got Mario from the Mario Bros. Movie, Zelda the boy, Metroid the girl, Kirby from 4Kids Viva Pinata, the kids from The Sandlot, Banana Slamma, the general from those insurance commercials, the Florida gator that ate my grandma, a psychopathic monster,
my son,
and a whole bunch of other goonballs coming together to just beat the stuffing out of each other.
They announced the details of the game a few months ago, and along with it, they debuted a new main theme for the game. Like most of the music in Smash Bros., it's really freaking good. But it got me thinking, what if, just like how the game is a culmination of elements from past entries in the series, the main theme for Smash Bros. Ultimate takes musical elements from the main themes of past games and blends them together into something new? Well, today's case study is about that. Now let's take a stroll down Smash Lane and establish what pieces I'll be looking at from each game, as well as what aspects from them are most relevant. Also, a few of my points will be coming from 8-Bit Music Theory's video on the tone of Smash's music, and I'll be noting when I cite them. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend checking it out. I left a link for it down below. First up,
Smash 64 doesn't actually have a main theme per se. It has an opening theme, but it's really jazzy and hectic, and aside from one section, doesn't have much of a melody to hold on to. The menu theme has even less going on in it, and sounds more like you walked down the wrong alley at Nintendo Land. So instead, I'm gonna go with what I believe is the most memorable original piece in the game. The character select theme, composed by Hirokazu Ando, isn't complicated. It's 8 measures that loop and 2 chords in total that are only a half step apart. The bass part just plays the root and fifth of the chord, and the melody and harmony goes something like this. The most important element to keep in mind is the rhythm. The bass moves in a syncopated rhythm, 2 dotted eighth notes and 1 eighth note to sound like this. The melody is also syncopated, hitting on the downbeat of the second beat and the offbeat of the third.
This energized, syncopated style will influence the music of future games, even as they move towards full-blown orchestral arrangements. Also, I apologize for the rain outside, Mother Nature doing its thing. Hashtag Mother Nature in Smash. Up next, like the original, Melee doesn't have a specific main theme, so I'll be looking at its opening theme as well as what I believe to be its most recognizable piece.
The opening theme, composed by Shogo Sakai, has a ternary form, excluding an intro and transition between the A and B sections. The A section is energetic, with staccato syncopated rhythms, and the B section is calmer and more languid in its performance. Another important distinction is instrumentation. The melody in the A section is carried primarily by horns, the melody in the B is carried by strings, and the C goes back to horns. Some other things to note about instrumentation include, this is the first Smash piece to implement vocals, first in the intro, then the B section, and finally the very end.
Super Smash Bros. Melee!
The C section features a driving snare drum that plays this pattern, and even though the A section melody is played by horns, strings are playing syncopated rhythms underneath. Also, woodwinds in the A section contrast the horns in terms of both timbre and rhythm.
Before moving on to Brawl, there are a few things I want to mention about Melee's most recognizable piece, the Menu 1 theme.
Menu 1, once again composed by Hirokazu Ando, has a binary form that loops infinitely, like the N64 character select. It also has a melodic interplay between horns, strings, and woodwinds, like Melee's opening. But there are a few things unique to this piece that are used in future games. First, the A section melody uses a scale that isn't major or minor. It's Lydian, meaning that it's based off a major scale with a raised 4th scale degree. Using this scale gives the melody a lighter, almost dreamy quality. Another famous piece that uses this scale is the theme from E.T. #ET in Smash. And second, both the A and B sections use bass notes in interesting ways. The A section utilizes pedal tones underneath every chord, while the B section uses them to add density. For example, here's the first half of the B progression without bass notes. Now, here it is with them. Keeping a consistent pedal tone in the A section makes the progression feel grounded, and creating chordal density adds to the harmonic section of the B harmonic tension of the B section as it modulates.
Excuse me, I'm tripping over my words. And speaking of tripping, for the first time in series history, Smash has a specific main theme, done by Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu. It's one of the best pieces the Smash series has ever produced, in my opinion. But, like a much derided tripping mechanic, it's a departure from what the series had done before, and there's not much that future games took from it.
That being said, there are some elements worth examining. For example, vocals. While it isn't the first time vocals have been in a Smash theme, it's definitely the theme that features them most prominently. They're even set to Latin text, which talks about those who you once considered enemies now being those you fight alongside, which ties into the game's adventure mode where everyone comes together to defeat Tobias Funke. Aside from the lyrics, the most relevant thing to take from the vocals is their texture. When all the voices are singing together, the texture is usually homophonic, with tenor and soprano taking the melody and bass and alto singing a harmony that's usually a third below. Some other key components include a ternary form excluding an intro and outro, where the A section is bright and bouncy and the B section is in part softer and more fluid. Even though the choir has the melody most of the time, strings, horns, and woodwinds are all used, whether it's for doubling lines, playing contrasting lines, or providing accents. The snare drum returns and plays the same rhythm as it did in Melee's opening, and a greater presence of authentic cadences in the A and B sections, which are in C# minor.
And finally, to conclude our Smash tour, much like the game it belongs to, the main theme for Smash 4 is an excellent work, one that carries over and builds off what made past themes work so well. And much like the game it belongs to, I'm pretty indifferent to it, despite what I just said. I don't know, maybe it's because I didn't play the game as much as Melee and Brawl, but this theme just doesn't get me riled up in the same way that Melee and Brawl's themes did.
Like Brawl's theme, it's used for a bunch of other pieces in the game, but I'm looking at the version of this tune that plays in the menu. Also like Brawl's theme, it has a ternary form with an intro and transitions, with an energetic A section and calmer B section, as well as a C section that borrows heavily from the A. All three sections have melodies that make great use of 16th notes for movement, and after taking a vacation and not being in Brawl's theme, syncopation makes a lovely return.
While the 6-7-1 makes a few appearances, phrases usually end on a 4-chord with a suspension. In fact, this theme uses more plagal cadences, and even a few authentic ones to mark the ends of phrases. And these transitions, they're sick. They almost remind me of thickened lines, which you only usually hear in jazz. Maybe a callback to Smash 64? Nah, never mind, that's kind of a stretch.
In terms of instrumentation, there are a few new additions. The transition between the B and C uses electric guitar for the first time in a Smash theme, and even more importantly, there's a shaker in the C section.
That doesn't really matter in the scope of things. I just like shakers.
But aside from those newbies, it's the same focus on strings, horns, and woodwinds as before. Horns play the A section melody, strings play the B and C section melodies, and woodwinds are used for quick accents.
And now, with all the other games out of the way, let's talk about Ultimate. I want to preface all of this by saying that the version of this theme I'm looking at is the one from the E3 2018 trailer, so it's absolutely possible that some of my insights may become irrelevant by the time the game comes out in December. With that, let's dive in.
The Ultimate theme begins with a 6-measure section that introduces this melody and chord progression. Like many of Smash's previous melodies, this one is heavy on syncopation, with this 3-3-2 rhythmic figure hitting on the downbeat of each measure. In terms of notes, I want to zoom in on this bit right here. Assuming this section is in E minor, this C sharp would mean that the melody is briefly in Dorian, meaning it uses a minor scale but with a raised sixth. In fact, these first two measures are really similar to the first two measures of Melee's Menu 1, which also used a specific mode. However, in the next measure, the C sharp becomes C natural, which lines up with the chord underneath. From there, the chords ascend, and at the end is a 6-7-1. While this section borrows bits and pieces from Melee, I'd actually say its nearest counterpart is Smash 4, as they share similar melodic and chord movements. If any of you in the audience want to make a crack about how Smash 4 and Ultimate's themes sound the same, and how Ultimate is a glorified port of Smash 4, now's your time. However, after this intro, Sakamoto throws us into the first main section with a new melody and a new key. This A-section melody, played by horns, uses the same syncopated rhythmic pattern as the intro melody, though the other notes add contrast by being 16th notes, similar to Smash 4, or quarter notes, similar to Brawl. The chord progression here mostly alternates between A minor and D, with additional chords to end phrases. Two things worth mentioning here. One, similar to Brawl and Smash 4, authentic cadences. Two, in the second half of this section, the horns add in this harmony that sounds like this. Those notes follow the same contour as the Smash 64 character select. After 2 repetitions of this section, the piece goes into the B section, and keeping in tradition, the B is softer and calmer compared to the A. When listening to this, you might be reminded of the B section of Melee's opening. And if you are, then
congratulations!
Because they're really similar. The first half of its chord progression is nearly identical to that of Melee's opening, and their melodies, both played by strings, even start on the same note. The second half of Ultimate's B section differentiates itself with a tonicization to E major to accent a return to A minor. The A and B sections repeat again, this time with added harmonies and instrumentation. One instrument of interest, the snare drum, which plays the same rhythm it played in Melee and Brawl. From there, the piece goes into this transition, which may only be there for the trailer so they can announce Pikachu's return after being a Microsoft property for so long, so I won't spend too much time on it. Basically, this section recalls the intro melody in the key of F minor before tonicizing into the related key of B flat major. Also worth pointing out, the use of unrelated bass notes to create harmonic tension, similar to Melee's Menu 1. After announcing Pikachu, the theme goes into the C section, which uses the same melody as the intro. The chord progression underneath it, however, is slightly different. The two halves of the phrase start the same, but they end in different ways. The first half ends on a 5 chord, while the second half ends with the ascending 4, 5, 6, 7 from the intro, which is weird because the 5 chord is the strongest way to end a phrase, and having it end the first half of the larger phrase kinda plays with your expectations.
What I think this could be is a bridging of past themes' chord progressions. The first half, which ends on the 5 chord, calls back to Brawl and maybe even Smash 4. The second half, with the 6-7-1, harkens back to Melee. There are 2 last bits I want to highlight, and they both have to do with the final C section after the piece modulates from E minor to F minor. First, it's the only time where vocals are used. In fact, they're used in the same way that they were used in Brawl. Soprano and tenor take the melody, and alto and bass take a harmony that's usually a third below. And second, the key change itself. A Smash theme has never done a half-step modulation using previously heard material before. Right? Sakamoto, you sly dog. Now, like I said, this version of this theme may not be the final version we hear in December, so certain elements like form I didn't want to go too in-depth with because they could very easily change. Also, I tried not to be super analytical to the point of conspiracy, like, oh hey, there's a G-flat, here's every time a G-flat's been used in a Smash theme. When I do these kinds of videos, I don't want to over-explain things, you know? It's great when we can flesh out a piece's deeper meaning using analytical looks at theory and production, but there is still some mystery to music that can't, and in my personal opinion, shouldn't be explained. Just like Smash Bros itself, this game doesn't try to explain why all these characters are coming together to wave dash their cares away, or how Luigi can survive a scythe hit from death himself. He's dead. I don't care what Nintendo says. You can't come back from that. And trying to fully justify it is kind of a useless exercise. That was kind of a personal left turn, but in any case, the Smash Bros Ultimate theme is great. I hope I've explained how it uses elements from previous games, and if you have a favorite piece or memory from playing these games, I'd love to know in those comments down below. And I, for one, can't wait to pick the new one up later this year and play with my friends. Pichu only. Rainbow Cruise. All items set to high.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching till the end. A lot of my research involved looking at arrangements of these pieces, and if you're interested, I've put links to all of them below, as well as the 8-bit music theory video I mentioned earlier, and the rest of my sources. Again, thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.